On this episode of the Rebrand review, we're talking about a change from Bloodwise to Blood Cancer UK. I'm Tony Hardy, founder and director of Canny Creative.
I'm Glen, creative director here at Canny.
Today on the Rebrand review, we're talking about Bloodwise, who've rebranded with the help of Pentagram. Now they're called Blood Cancer UK.
And it's much more on the nose. We really liked Bloodwise as a name, but I think if you're trying to get exposure for a particular charity, it needs to say exactly what you needed to say.
Bloodwise to me seemed like quite researchy. They're getting wise about blood, etc., etc. But I can understand why they've brought the word cancer into the name. Like, it is about blood cancer. It's on the nose. Get it out there. And yeah, Pentagram, hands down, one of my favourite agencies in the world. I look at Pentagram's site on a weekly basis. There's never anything I dislike. This project has probably been the first one where I've looked and went, ooh, I'm not sure if that's for me.
Yeah, I think it is, and it's a bit of a shock, to be honest, in our office. It normally doesn't happen.
Nah, every time Pentagram releases a project, we're like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Yeah. And it's excited. It's a real buzz of positivity. This time it's been like, have you seen this by Pentagram? Yeah. This is strange.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't like it, but I think there are issues with it, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, let's start with that logo. It's massive.
It is.
Like,
it's huge.
The vertical lockup, they've used this big kind of hand-painted B. That vertical lockup's going to, personally, I think it's going to be impossible to use. Yeah,
and I mean, even on the horizontal lockup, the B is so much bigger than the actual typography, to the point where it feels so disconnected.
But they've obviously had to do this to make the whole thing balance up, because it balances beautifully. Yeah. It's just huge.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, they've used a capital B in blood. They've used a capital UK for the UK, but in cancer, because they've stacked Blood Cancer UK on top of each other, they've had to use a little C. And you could say you're being compressed, or that's the feeling cancer gives you, but I feel like it's just inconsistent.
Yeah, you know why they've done it at a purely visual basis, to make sure that them lines sit. Because if you do a capital C, there's going to be a bit of white space underneath the blood, and it's going to look a bit odd. But as you say, consistency screams that needs to be a capital C.
And weirdly, I wonder if they'd done it with a capital C, whether the font and the type would have all sat nicer with that B.
Yeah, possibly.
But you weren't even sure if you saw a B at first.
Yeah, the first thing I seen, I don't know why, I don't know if this is just me, but instantly I seen a heart. And it is a B, it's most definitely a B. I'm not saying it's not a B, but I just seen a heart straight away, which your heart obviously pumps the blood. It has definite reason to be there.
I mean, that's being discussed, let's be honest. They know exactly what they're doing there. And what I quite like about it is, like, obviously there's the breast cancer awareness ribbon, the cancer awareness ribbon, and I feel like this identity kind of links to that without being at all linked to it. It's got a very organic shape, it's quite swooping.
As we've said before, this could definitely go on in an enamel pin badge.
It could definitely go on an enamel pin badge. One thing we should talk about is the application. So they've got this B, this heart B shape. And you were joking on before we started recording, we were saying this could be quite sick in a way. Like,
it's a bit grim.
Is this someone smearing blood? We hope that won't be the intention, but like, you could probably read it as that. I mean, you kind of got there with like.
I think it was more the sort of the actual technique that they've used. It's pretty hand drawn. It's got the rough edges around where the B sits. It's almost as if someone's painted it, but you can imagine that could be if you were actually moving blood around. That's what it looks like.
I guess that's what is great about design. There's so many ways to read different things, read different brands. What I really like about this identity, this is probably my favourite thing they've done with it, is this B is obviously for blood, but they've also brought in because of, so like, I support, I donate, I care because of Laura, because of Anna, and I think like, that's a really clever, like, again, it's a brand leading with language.
It brings, especially when you bring it in with the imagery that they've used, it brings in a hard-hitting personal element to it. You can see these people and they don't look overly well, or they don't look overly happy, to the point where it brings emotions into this rather than it just being right, we do a lot of research, we've got some fancy graphics. It brings it back to a personal element.
They've used like really close crops of people's faces, again, not looking too well, but really beautiful, almost harrowing photos, and it plays well with the brand, and that messaging really helps elevate it. One thing to point out though is there's a mock-up of a billboard, and they've used this bee to kind of frame two people on the beach. They're going to have to be really selective about the photos they use there. Like, the two people on the beach is obviously a parent and a toddler, or a parent and a child, and that works because of the height differential. But I think on the whole, they're going to have to be super careful about the photography they use.
When you usually frame things like that, it tends to be a lot bigger of a space to play with. Yeah, they may have some different edges and different shaped edges, so it's not just a square, but there's not a great deal of space within that bee to actually use. No. And as you say, it's going to be very specific photography. I don't think you can just put a face in there, because the bee, when it comes in, is just going to cover half of that face, and you might not get the effect they want.
So it's super simple, but I'm really not sure it's super effective. Like, the use of language, brilliant. The way it's done also kind of is good, but it's just like, it's not pentagram. It's not as like bang on as I'm used to from
There's
pentagram.
elements we really like. There's elements that we're not too sure on.
One of the things I do like though is it's rare actually you see a brand take the logo, like the font from the logo or the typography from the logo, and then roll it through the entire brand. So they've used this slab serif typography in the logo, and they've also used it for all of the messaging, which is actually makes quite a nice change. It's impactful and it works super well. And the colours, I mean, personally, again, I feel like this red works super lovely on the darker maroon and purple colours. Not so well on white. I don't know what it is recently, like designs on white just all kicking in as well as designs on.
I think unfortunately with who they are, there is restrictions on colour, really. To be honest, they could have went totally out there and just totally taken it away from red blood. But I think you sort of do have to link it back in. I think, as I said, there is restrictions and limitations there that you can go to.
So, in summary, the logo's large and it might be tricky to use.
We're not sure on the bee framing. I just don't think it works as an application.
The colours look good when they're on dark.
The way the name is typeset is a little bit awkward. Just how it sits with the logo, and then what we talked about, the capital C and then the capital B in the UK.
But the way they've used the language and the way they're using this because is really, really nice, and I think that's what to me makes it a success. Like, if I had to draw a success failure line, that would push it over the success line for me, and I think that is a brilliant use of language for Blood Cancer UK. So, thinking and concept wise, because of that, I'm giving it a big old 5.
Visual representation, there's a few elements we're not too sure on, a few elements we're like. This is going to sit sort of middle of the road at 3.
The brand mark, I've got concerns about the shape, the legibility, the usage of it all. I'm giving it a 2.
Typography, again, we've talked about how we like the idea that I've actually brought the logo font into using on all the other applications, so we're giving that a 4.
And the colour palette, again, it works in most circumstances, if not all, but it's nothing too adventurous. But again, there are limitations, we understand them, why they haven't went too far with that. Colour palette, 4 out of 5. That brings the grand total for Blood Cancer UK and Pentagram in a 3.6 out of 5. I've been Tony Hardy.
I've been Glen Millen.
This has been Rebrand Review. We'll see you next time. Remember, like, comment and subscribe below.